I clicked through and it was out on Safari, but was not intending to be.
It's all good.
So we are out of dried mango.
Oh no. How are you going to survive?
We had this great discussion this morning, and so kind of one thing led to another, and we're out. So all I have today are like these crackers.
Oh my God. Well, those are pretty unique crackers. Like that, is it just like a long cracker?
It's like, yeah, it's got little salt
Oh, nice,
specks
nice.
on it, and then it's got like it's actually kind of they're very tasty. It has like thyme
Oh,
interwoven in
nice.
the you see
Yeah,
it
yeah,
little
yeah.
flecks in there. So I will try to mute before I chomp.
Don't worry. Keep it authentic. It sounds great. It's all
um,
good.
yeah, but that's my lunch for the day. And so oh yeah, and then so Thursday is or we're past Thursday, so Thursday outdoor dining in San Francisco opened up.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if
How long had it been banned?
probably, geez, I don't know. It's been months, I think. I'm not sure. Might have been since,
I actually didn't even realize that because I think New York has had outdoor dining the whole time.
right. I want to say like October, November, maybe it closed down or something. I think it's
Mhm.
been a little bit. So it feels like there's a little bit of a new buzz in the streets. You know, if you drive across town,
Yeah,
all of the places are open.
that's nice.
So I'm thinking we should do some outdoor dining tonight because it's, finally now available.
Yeah. Where are you gonna go?
But I don't know. I was proposing it as an idea that we should do something, but I haven't picked a place. Um, so I don't know. We're sort of like I think we're going to end up swimming after we've got after lunch break. We've got other things, and she's got a few calls, and then we're gonna probably swim like this evening,
Nice,
and
nice,
then
nice.
we'll do outdoor dining date night after the swim.
Aw, that sounds so nice. You can bring Zoe too.
We brought Zoe. We had an emergency. We had a coffee bean emergency this morning.
What
So
happened?
we Jen doesn't like it if I buy coffee beans too far in advance because she thinks they get like out of they're just not as fresh.
Yeah.
And so we try to buy them like as they're we try to buy them each week or two. Actually, there's a startup that tries to solve this because what happens is I used to buy a lot of them and then I would forget to refresh them. And so there's a
Hmm.
startup called Bottomless. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of that. Maybe from you, I'm not sure. I feel like Ray has also been tweeting a lot about coffee now that I'm
Mhm.
more attuned to his feed.
Oh yeah, he tweets a ton about coffee,
Yeah.
caffeinated capital and all.
Oh yeah.
He does a lot of these tweets where he'll have like the he'll have like his cycling legs and a little peace sign and his little espresso in hand. I think they're on Twitter. I see them, or yeah,
Amazing.
um, very on brand for Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we
Asking
had to
for
go out this
the
morning and
coffee
get.
startups you should have coffee from.
Yeah, this one. I think this one works because it's it helps solve this problem that I actually ran into today,
Yeah.
which is like we don't want to buy coffee too far ahead. Here's here's an example of Ray celebrating his.
Love it. That looks
Usually they're not in jeans though. Usually they're like cycling.
full workout gear.
Yeah, like I think he's like in Point Reyes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Halfway through a ride. Hmm. Where are they? Maybe they're on.
I
Maybe
see a
they're
bunch of them
on.
on his if you click on his media on his profile.
Oh, right. I never think to navigate Twitter that way.
Yeah, it's like the Instagram feed version of Twitter.
Do you do that a lot?
I don't actually. It's kind of interesting though to see what people post, pictures and stuff.
Right. Yeah, there's so many different ways to use Twitter. Like the lists thing, I never really got into, but I
Yeah.
I feel like it's a super interesting way to use Twitter, but I just haven't gotten my workflow into it. But I know some people are like really really deep on that. You know, like lists
Yeah.
is the only thing they do. They unfollow everybody and then they just consume via lists.
Yeah. It seems like it takes a lot of time to build good lists, unless you just follow other people's lists and use those, but probably
Right.
worth it overall.
Right. So one of the benefits of having all of our meetings all morning is that I actually rarely ever pop into Twitter before.
Yeah, so it's like a fresh
Which
look
means
at
it's all
Twitter.
fresh to me. I think when we don't have meetings all morning, I'm
Yeah.
popping into Twitter from time to time. But
Yeah. So what
so
time
have
was
you?
your last like good look at Twitter? Was it the 3 a.m.?
Yeah, it's probably my 3 a.m. look. I'm trying to think of what was happening there. Oh, I didn't see the. I saw that the AOC Chamath thing happened, but I didn't
Did
see. I
Chamath
couldn't
been
find.
on? I was like when I was kind of listening to it, Alexis Ohanian was on with her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw
That was
that
kind of interesting actually.
that was new and popped up. And
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't, I wasn't able to find the part of the video where Chamath was there. So maybe there's some other logistical thing. I was kind of skipping around. I didn't watch the whole thing. I kind of caught it after the fact and skipped around and tried to
Yeah.
find a bit. But did you watch it live or were you?
I kind of watched it in and out, but the one interesting part I caught was something like Alexis Ohanian was like saying that short selling is weak and like you're basically making money when you bet on a company decreasing in value. Kind of, the vibe was kind of like, oh, who does that? Like such a bummer kind of investor, which I thought was like not a very nuanced view of short selling place in the market.
Right. So do you? Yeah.
I mean, I don't have like super strong opinions on all this because I don't trade and I was never like super into following hedge funds or anything like that, even in my last job. But it does seem that it's good to incentivize people to like uncover fraud and have some sort of opposing pressure on the market.
Yeah.
And so I was just surprised that like a prominent kind of capitalist figure would say that on like this giant Twitch stream. I wonder how much of it is he actually thinks that versus just like seizing the energy of the moment.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. Obviously, these things always like have a lot that is lost in the sound bites. But one of the things that seems pretty lost to me is that, I think there's this sort of negativity toward the hedge funds, and there's positivity towards the kind of the internet able to, kind of self-assemble as, and be able to apply some of the same types of, collaboration, collusion, manipulation. I don't know depending on how you interpret it. That hedge funds maybe historically would have. So, but I think there's also there's hedge funds on all sides of this. I'm sure there are probably some hedge funds. I mean, we know Melvin Capital as extreme loser in this case, and I certainly wouldn't shed any tears for them. But I bet there's other hedge funds that were also playing along with the Reddit Wall Street Bets game, and they're expressing a view and making money in that environment.
Yeah.
In a sense, I think those aspects of the conversation. I think there's like a very like us versus them, good versus bad dichotomy that is flying all over the world, and I don't think there's real discussion of what do we, how do we want to organize markets, and how do we want to organize players and markets, and does regulation play a role at certain parts, or do we want to be some sort of DeFi, fully deregulated market stuff, and some of the the stuff that happens there. I mean, I'm generally a fan of people being able to express different sentiments. So like, you know,
Yeah. Don't
I
ban
wouldn't say I'm a, what's that?
So not banning short selling as a concept.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's nothing. It's not something that I have ever participated in. I certainly don't like to trade in markets, so it's not something that I have participated in or would participate in. I think it'd be hard to, yeah, I think it'd be hard to imagine that I would ever want to personally take that perspective on something.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a valuable signal, like you're saying, and I think it's important that we allow those kinds of signals to emerge if we want, you know, if we're sort of touting free markets and capitalism and, you know, anything in that vein. I think, you know, limiting signal, which is just, you know, somebody else's differing opinion, seems like a weird line to draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it is surprising, interesting that we have these, you know, we have the ability to express negative sentiment, whether that's, you know, buying puts or short selling. There's a lot of different ways to express.
Yeah.
In, you know, traditional kind of like, you know, capital markets, you know, securities and stuff. But we don't have a way to like express that same sentiment on like another asset, like say real estate. We don't have really, we only have like positivity there. We don't have any negative sentiment or expression of negative sentiment, you know, in any way that we do. And I'm not sure that, you know, such a thing could exist or should exist. It's just, it's kind of strange that such a large asset class, you know, I think for a lot of reasonable reasons, doesn't have such an expression available.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, yeah, I guess anything in private markets really.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking,
you know, that kind of the dichotomy is
buyouts or venture would be the same, right? Like, what's the equivalent of making money when something goes down?
Yeah, it almost seems like we don't really have like a tool. I'm not even sure I could imagine what that tool would look like to express negative sentiment in something that's not liquid.
Yeah.
Because there's also like an information problem when things are not public.
Yeah.
You probably like, you know, you can't expect everybody who wants to express negative sentiment to be able to get access to the storytelling that may be internal and private and, you know, for good reason, I think guarded. So yeah, and all the, you know, regulation and scrutiny that entails, you know, that, you know, sometimes these smaller entities would not be able to support.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Black Swan?
No, I haven't read it. It's been on the list for a while.
Yeah. Obviously, you know, very famous book by Taleb.
I wonder what he's been saying about all this. He's definitely a very like fireball Twitter personality.
I'm actually wondering now if I even follow him. It would be a good one to follow these days.
Yeah.
Let me. Oh, I do. Okay, I just must not be reading Twitter enough these days. Or maybe he's active. So one of the things that he covers in Black Swans I thought was interesting is that kind of the life of let's call it short seller or, you know, put buyer. The life of somebody who wants to express negative sentiment is kind of challenging because you show up every day and most of the time you're wrong. So you have to be like, most of the time the market kind of, you know, it's volatility, but it's more trends upward, let's say. And then it has these catastrophic single days over the course of, you know, a few years or maybe a decade where like all of the downside volatility is expressed at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, it's kind of like you have to be able to manage your psychology to even play that game because you show up every day being wrong and everybody hates you and thinks you're a joker and a loser.
Yeah.
Right? And so it naturally trends toward people wanting to express positive ideas in the market just to, you know, not go through life with that with that kind of cross to bear, burden.
Yeah, that's true. But then, yeah, how will social money kind of applications and groups change that? Because it's pretty interesting even seeing screenshots from Wall Street Bets or different groups on
Mm-hmm.
Reddit where people are like, I bought GameStop at the high, and everyone is like, yeah, like you're a true believer. Or like, I've lost so much money on this, but then everyone else kind of rallies around that person, like they're kind of a hero.
Mm-hmm.
When it elevates beyond kind of like looking at your wins and losses on a monetary level to more like, all right, this is now part of my identity. Like I'm a believer in this.
Right, right,
People who believe in this are with me, so I don't mind losing like thousands of dollars.
right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned identity. I think that it's so hard. I think when we as humans we spend our limited time focusing our attention on something. It's hard to not get that wrapped up into how we identify. But I
Yeah,
think it's hard to make as objectively I guess dispassionate decisions when you've spent more
yeah,
time with something, you feel more allegiant or aligned to it.
yeah, totally.
The other big news that I caught at 3 a.m. was the Elon Musk Bitcoin tweet. Have you seen that?
I saw that because I was looking at the price of Bitcoin. And I was like, what happened? And then I started seeing all these like bio changes on Twitter.
Yeah, I like the kind of understated. I mean, he's not usually one to be understated,
Yeah.
and he kind of said, in retrospect, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then I feel like a lot of people have been doing that profile thing. Let me see if I've got. I think I have
But yeah, there
a
was a
tweet.
screenshot of a bunch of them like Jack, Dorsey, who else? The Winklevoss
Right.
brothers, someone else.
Yeah. Where did I see that? Yeah, I thought I saw. There's I guess one of the other ones was the Robin Hood $1 billion.
Oh, the funding that they raised?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had. I'm actually gonna modify the URL. I shared it with some extra Google tracker, but it's the New York Times URL. So yeah, they raised $1 billion, and it was kind of an emergency. I haven't read all the mechanics, but my understanding is because these things take a few days to settle, they're exposed to the risk. There's like some settlement risk in there that typically isn't that big a deal, but has become, a very, very big deal with the way the market is working around these things.
Yeah. Yeah, there was interesting commentary also about just how it was actually understandable what Robinhood did, but the way they communicated the actions was not like great PR for them. Did you see this tweet?
Oh, yes, I did. This is good. He kind of rewrote it in a more above board way, let's say.
Yeah, just like very direct, keep it real, tell people
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah. I like that style.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see. I think Sequoia came out with a tweet, kind of disavowing any involvement in coercing anybody to do anything here.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, Sequoia did not pressure Robinhood to halt the trading of any stocks. This rumor is completely false. So I think it's nice that they sort of, clarified that, because I think there's plenty of concern that people may have. So nice to get that clarity.
Yeah.
Wow. All these Twitter links. I feel like we need to render these things better. I saw you filed that, right?
Yeah.
Should we coordinate that? Speaking of tweets,
The remote work thing?
right? I'll pull it up. Oh, actually, before that, this one was funny. Do you know Sandeep Pichu from Felicis?
I just know who he is.
This is funny because I don't know, I've known him for 10 or 12 years. And then he told this tweet that suggests that we probably actually met like 20 plus years ago. I didn't realize he was a master's student at Illinois while I was an undergrad. And we were both in this kind of same recruiting loop. And we're at the same, like, they were giving away a car.
Oh my gosh. Whoa. Yeah, I'm looking back and forth right now.
It was such a surprise to me.
That's so funny. Wow. Yeah, I actually am curious, how much do you think you've like leaned on or retained strong ties to your college alumni network? Do you think it's been mostly like Silicon Valley, early career SF 2000s instead of very much college?
Yeah. I think for me, for one reason or another, I feel like most of the network of people is seeded, I'd say, more from my experience at Google and from college.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that, I feel like there were a lot of great people that I should have been connected to and around and have done great things that I overlapped with, but I wasn't, I wasn't super, like, I think I mentioned this a little bit the other day, but I wasn't like super, I don't know what you'd say.
Like working on things with a lot of people.
Yeah.
More kind of like solo.
Right. And I was kind of on campus and off. Like I lived in Spain for 6 months, and I did a co-op internship thing for like 6 months. So I kind of was in and off, like on and off campus. And I don't feel like I had like a strong set of like on campus. I mean, actually my brother was on campus at the same time, so we were roommates.
Oh, that's so nice. Wow.
So we used to
That's really nice. Not a lot of siblings would do that. I would have to do that with my sister.
You would?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be so fun.
Yeah, it was good. We're roommates in the dorms, and then we were roommates. We got an apartment together. But he was also similar to me, where he was kind of like on campus for a little bit, then he'd go do something else and kind of be off for a little bit and then come back. So it was a little bit of, kind of this back and forth. So I felt like it kind of diffused. I think a lot of people have these like college campus experiences where you have like this crew that you go through it all with. And I don't think I had quite that same thing.
Yeah.
But then I think, met a lot of great people at Google. And I think actually leaving Google, everybody was leaving around the same time, was forming sets of relationships together around like, figuring out what's next and what are we going to, how are we going to carry forward and do the next things in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's when a lot of my, the friendships and relationships I have today were kind of galvanized around that time period, which was like, kind of 2007. So call it 14-ish years ago.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, and then from there, it sort of blossomed out. So I feel like that was really the, kind of the crucible kind of experience that I think a lot of people have in college. I think I had more of that in the kind of like almost Google was like a candidate set, and then post Google was like the crucible.
Yeah.
Where everybody was kind of, trying to figure out what's next.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I think you see a lot of these, like, I think the phenomenon of the PayPal mafia is nothing like it has ever happened to that extent again. And I think there's a bunch of reasons for that.
Yeah.
Because I think they were like probably a tighter group than we've seen from any other kind of corporate alumni network, because of the fact that kind of like, many of those people who are kind of PayPal mafia, kind of very early PayPal, really went through the failure and the success together. And I think, almost everybody who joined Google really only had success ever. You never saw failure.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
You could launch products that weren't ever adopted and shut them down, but it wasn't like you were failing.
Yeah.
You didn't have this like existential threat of like, does this thing exist in the future? It's like, okay, that experiment didn't work and we'll try something else.
Yeah.
Whereas in PayPal, there were a lot of people who worked on it, before it was working in anything the form it is today.
Yeah.
And I think because they had that shared experience, I think that's like a special thing that you don't see a lot of. It's hard to replicate that in the world today, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, like companies that have had significant like ups and downs and ended up on the winning side of things and then spawned out like alumni.
Yeah. You think about, like, I would say maybe if I had to pick the strongest alumni network today, it's probably Stripe. Being strongest outside of PayPal. I think PayPal's kind of a different era, but from the modern era, I'd say like Stripe has a pretty phenomenal alumni network, and people come out of there and do great things.
For analogous reasons, you think, or is it a completely different scenario?
I think it's totally different. Because almost everybody who ever showed up at Stripe was joining something that was working. And so I think people haven't been through that like existential risk that I think the PayPal folks went through.
Yeah.
We should invite Max to actually tell the story. I don't want to tell his story for him, but but just, as a kind of casual observer, that would be my assessment. And I think these alumni groups are great, and there's great people and great companies that get built out of them. So it's not at all it's not a knock on the alumni groups. I'd be a fan of more structure. In fact, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours around the recent Dropbox layoffs, and I was suggesting like, hey, shouldn't there be like a Dropbox alumni network that's kind of just organically created, and like a bunch of people went through this thing and like help everybody come together. And I actually feel like more of that is better for, everybody's better for more people to figure out what they want to do next, and more startups to get created, more kind of job opportunities, or kind of whatever people are into. I think just sort of bringing people together with context.
Yeah.
I should check in with them and see see if anything ever came of that.
Yeah, that'd be super cool.
Or we could invite him and see if he. But the alumni stuff, I think the Stripe alumni thing is more because of the quality of people who have been through there. I think they have like a very high bar in hiring, and they work really hard, and they're very focused in the right ways. And I think, you compare that to other companies that maybe, have gotten an edge in one way or another, but don't necessarily have the same, culture, leadership, market, tools, habits, processes, probably like everything, to do with the company really matters. But I think I think Stripe is probably one of the strongest examples, kind of the modern era of this.
Yeah.
So I would want to be, whenever I meet somebody who's leaving Stripe, I'm interested. Like,
What
what
are
are you
you
doing?
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually another interesting thing about leaving Google in 2007. Google was kind of, in a very successful state. So it looked like, it looked still very promising, and most people had not been leaving Google. And so
Yeah.
it was kind of this, it was funny that just by nature of the fact that I had decided to leave, people were like, oh, you're leaving Google, you must have something great in mind. And it wasn't the case. I just knew I wanted to try a bunch of other stuff. But it opened up, it was like, it was almost like a calling card to be somebody who had left Google, because that was sort of an unheard of thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that, that same thing, having some calling card is important, whenever you're, and I wouldn't even term it like, I wasn't like going out to network, but I think those networks formed because like somebody was like, oh, I want to introduce the guy who thought it was a good idea to leave Google. That sounds kind of silly.
Yeah. Something must be
Like
going on there.
there must be something going on there. He's not telling
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
But it kind of becomes I think finding, I guess maybe the point is finding some edge, but not looking too hard for it, but just
Yeah.
being comfortable with something that's a little, associated with some uncertainty, a little bit different. And that, I would guess, I think even today, Stripe, I think, has such an opportunity ahead of it that I think when people say, that was great, that was fun, I learned a lot, and I'm going to do something else, I think similarly, people are like, oh, I haven't met a lot of people who are leaving Stripe. Like,
Yeah.
what do you have in mind?
Yeah.
And I have met several people who've left and are leaving and are starting companies, and they almost always are like very impressive. And they actually do have things in mind that specifically they want to work on, and they usually are, well considered and promising looking things.
Interesting, but like in a different way than you would now look at someone leaving Google, for example, because it's sort of like a different job profile altogether. Like joining a Google versus joining a Stripe feels like a very different like career move to them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know the total size, but I've got to imagine Google probably employs like 100,000 people today.
Yeah.
So there's lots of people leaving for life circumstance reasons, and it's just like, they were attracted to it for different reasons. They're leaving for different reasons, but it's not. I think it's not as much of a calling card. Whereas leaving Stripe today is probably a more similar calling card. Where I don't mean that in like I don't mean that in an obnoxious way. It could sound a little different. What I mean is, when somebody's leaving Stripe today, like, we can all look at Stripe and say, wow, this can really transform the internet. So if this person's leaving Stripe, there must be something exciting, and I want to learn about that.
Yeah.
I think Stripe has that character today. And I think as companies like Google and Facebook grow up, certainly people can spin out of there and create new companies or go on to do other interesting creative projects or work in politics. And there's tons of opportunities, but I think it's the actual fact of leaving is I think it's just like less intriguing, to like bootstrap network opportunities.
Yep.
So I guess I actually went to college at Google.
Yeah, exactly.
I got maybe some of that college experience. Okay, so I was gonna DM Julian and see this. I want to get the tweet right. Okay, I DM'd Julian. I'll see if he gets back. So yeah, I was thinking about. Oh, did you see that uh, Linda Shi is doing an Ethereum
Yeah, I saw that from Pluto.
meetup in Pluto? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look for it because I think we should figure out probably. Let's see. Planning on hosting a virtual Ethereum meetup. Who's in? And then on the thread, she has a sign up form. Oh, event at capacity. Okay, so what she did is she created a sign up form. She picked a date and time, gave a sign up form. They got to 100 attendees, and then they had to cut it. Oh wow, she actually she customized the room a little bit. That's so awesome.
What's the setting?
She just this thing called Park Place is a NFT digital art thing that she.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know what that means, but that is cool.
So, do you know NFTs are non-fungible tokens?
I'm not familiar with how they work. Is that so? That also came up yesterday with the essay thing I was sending you, right?
With which one?
That essay,
Oh, right.
funded
Yes,
essay.
So non-fungible tokens. I mean, I'm less studied on all the mechanics of kind of the Ethereum ecosystem, but I think the idea of a non-fungible token is to create, something that has scarcity. And so non-fungible token digital art, NFT digital art, is talking about like, here's a piece of art and you are the owner of this digital asset and other people don't own it. People can look at it, you can share it in different ways, but like you are the owner. And so you can buy and sell and trade them. So CryptoKitties is kind of have you heard of CryptoKitties?
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the, larger scale endeavors addressing NFTs where you collect and breed forever friends. I'm reading their copy right now. Forever friends.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. So I didn't know that a lot of people were doing this around digital art as well.
Yeah, I think that's the main use case.
Easier for my mind to grasp than what is going on with that essay. Like, I don't understand how you spread ownership across multiple people.
I'm not sure. I think I didn't read the mechanics around the essay. I mean, I think a lot of NFT stuff is challenged by how the scarcity model works and how do you who sets the rules, and if the rules need to evolve, how do they get evolved? And effectively, you're sort of introducing, a third party decision maker.
Yeah.
In many cases, which if you're doing all of that, why not just host it centralized? So I think. Like I said, I'm not deeply studied on this ecosystem, but I think the concept is something that is intriguing. The same way we have physical art, could you have digital art?
Yeah.
And then I guess like an essay maybe has digital collaborators. Maybe they sell copies of the essay, so it's maybe like effectively a paywall. But there's some mechanism for how that paywall gets hit and visited, and who gets paid if people go through the paywall, and what's the rev share from each of the authors and stuff.
Yeah, super intriguing to like break that down to the unit of an individual essay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like multiple people kind of investing or taking an ownership stake in something like every bundle or like a platform. It's more like per essay. I don't even know how you would. it's like per YouTube video almost, because you have like multiple. You could do this for anything then.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I have much. I wouldn't say I have much of a view about how these things could or should be managed. It does seem
Yeah.
like they work really well in environments where there is like a world or a space that's, you know, run by a central provider. So imagine, you know, it's like Second Life or Pluto, or if there's, you know, Fortnite, I think is actually a great at scale functioning working example.
Yeah.
Fortnite, they run the space, and so they can actually define the rules. And if like the rules are getting out of hand, they can run the central bank. They basically run a little government, and they run like their own policy. And if they're really bad at policy management, people will abandon the game. If they're reasonable, people will stick around. And I think in that environment, having digital scarcity is both like easy to implement,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, has real checks and balances, you know, kind of organically. The idea of NFTs is to try to store these assets kind of contextless on like maybe the Ethereum blockchain, I think is the typical place where they would do this. And, you know, the rules around scarcity of Ethereum are, I think, constantly changing. So even like the underlying platform, my understanding, I'm not an expert at Ethereum, but my understanding is like there's different monetary policy that gets explored over time, and that there's not a strong view on how scarcity of Ethereum should work. And so then these are like these token projects, which are bound to that blockchain, are also meant to be scarce, but scarce with respect to the blockchain, but not with respect to like an otherwise government or world, like a Fortnite, right? So Epic Games can set monetary policy, and if something goes off the rails, they can readjust. It's again, you know, that human intervention. I like the idea of trying to get away from, you know, human intervention there and kind of setting rules and letting them run. But it's they're thorny.
Yeah, definitely.
Thorny things to deal with.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of another one. Is another one I saw at 3 a.m. I think it was, is because all my tweets are from 3 a.m. I think, because I didn't read it all morning. Let's see. I think Balaji announced that he's moving to Asia.
Oh, I saw that. Big move.
Yeah.
Between India and Singapore, right?
Right. Yep. So I thought I had heard that he was here. I'll share the tweet. I thought I'd heard that he was leaving San Francisco and that he was maybe spending time. I don't know if he was like part of the Miami crew or part of the Austin crew, but I think he had been somewhat in that, like, you know, leaving San Francisco for other U.S. things. And then, you know, I think until this, you know, I hadn't heard anything about these, you know, India and Singapore.
Yeah. Does he speak Tamil? Wow, I didn't know that.
Is that what that says?
Yeah. Countries where Tamil is an official language: India and Singapore and Sri Lanka.
That's Tamil for Tamil. Is that right?
I think so. I do not speak or read Tamil at all.
Okay, but you recognize it when you see it?
I mean, honestly, to me, a lot of the South Indian languages are difficult to discern because they all have like the curlier script. But I just saw his other screenshot where it listed the countries where it's an official language. That's pretty cool. I mean, I really get the appeal if you're looking for somewhere like kind of hungry, optimistic about technology, etc., etc.
Yeah.
For me, the main barrier in terms of thinking about ever moving to India is really more environmental factors like air pollution and kind of like public transit and things like that.
Right. In Singapore, I've heard, I visited each of Singapore and India briefly. You know, I haven't spent extensive time in either place, but you know, I think from people who have spent a lot more time in Singapore, I've heard that there's a a feeling of like it has like this very almost insular small feel to it because it's it's a
Yeah.
city and a country, and it's a relatively small island, and I think people get a little island fever in a sense of just they feel like they're kind of stuck.
Mm.
It's a small, I mean, it's a small world, but it's also a nice hub for other things. So
Yeah.
I've also heard people talk more about Bali.
Really?
Yeah,
Like
because I think
just to
as a
move for personal enjoyment and ability to work remote, or sort of also as like a tech hub type place?
I think the appeal comes from a lot of the lifestyle appeal things of Bali, but I think like we were talking yesterday, right? Historically, you would need to be kind of checked out to
Yeah.
to move to Bali if you wanted to. Like, it's hard to both like deeply engage with creation in the world or in technology
Yeah.
while also kind of living the surfer lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think it's maybe more possible today, so it's more on the menu of options.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of I think it'll be good. I think Balaji has been long enough figure in the kind of San Francisco tech ecosystem that he's like well networked and well people understand his perspective, and he has really strong networks around kind of Silicon Valley. But I think by him being somewhere as far flung as Asia and splitting time, in fact, between a few big hubs of technology talent, I think it will be good to help take some of the ideas that might be more common around here, but that don't always get as much airtime in the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can maybe hopefully be a beacon of some of that.
Yeah.
So overall, I was kind of happy to see it.
Yeah.
As a good for the world.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be a good transmitter back to like people listening in the traditional SF tech scene. I never thought of it that way as well.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways,
Yeah.
most certainly, because I think he's probably still going to be connected to everybody, especially the way online connections work these days. He's not going to lose that. But I think forging a new relationship with a local leader in a cross globe way, I think is tougher. Like, there's just tons of cues and culture that are absent or missed. Whereas I think take somebody who's so steeped in it, and then they choose to export themselves to a different environment where they can probably they won't forget their recent history or their long history, and they will maybe help kind of share some of the ideas and into the new communities that they're kind of embedding themselves in.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, for one, I'm a fan of San Francisco or California as a concept.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, maybe you should move somewhere. Move to Bali.
Yeah. I mean, I do struggle with this because I think number one is like still, despite how many friends I have who have left, more of my network and people are here.
Yeah.
And more of just, probably the stuff that, we value in our lives around, trail running and cycling and stuff is more accessible and comfortable and stuff here. So, in a sense, we're probably, I'd say, less likely to do something so dramatically different as like, move to Bali.
Yeah.
But I am a fan of, like, I think we're going to stay here most likely or relatively close by.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a fan of like more of the kind of networks and ideas that have felt like they're almost, accidentally proprietary to kind of the San Francisco scene to like spread their wings and go everywhere. Because I think it's just like, I think it's just awesome for, the ability to move humanity forward faster.
Yeah, totally agreed.
And it's inspiring. It also puts the world on a more like optimistic, perspective, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited for like everybody to be optimistic about how to contribute to building things.
Yeah.
And that optimism, I can understand why that optimism is hard to come by if you haven't seen it work to the scale that you see it work here. So, if your experience with technology is, limited to, to like, maybe, something like a services business.
Yeah.
You could imagine that people would not feel the empowerment that you get by, building kind of first party technologies and all of the sort of like the different style of kind of engaging with that part of the world and the kind of the optimistic nature that you can orient around.
Yeah.
But the more, I think the internet is the first to, obviously it spreads those ideas. It should be able to spread those ideas really quickly, but I think actually having hubs of people also really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And, having people who have found success in one way or another in this ecosystem and then going out. And I think I think it's important to take the perspective that like, don't come in necessarily as like it's not like, here's how to do it, but like, it's more like, here's what I've come to believe and why I've come to believe it.
Yeah.
And like, empowerment, like it's not here's how you should do it, but it's here's what can be done.
Learning and sharing. Yeah. It's not like a power pedestal that you keep when you move somewhere. Yeah.
Right. Actually, speaking of those pedestals, I've had a tweet brewing in my mind that I've not quite figured out how to say. It's actually been brewing for, I think, months.
Yeah.
I haven't quite figured out how to say, but and I don't want it to come off as negative. I think it should be a positive. But you mentioned like that power pedestal. I think there's a lot of value to appreciating positive characteristics about people. But I think when it turns into, I think it can turn into this like hero worship, which then misses the nuance. And I think I would suggest that no matter how much appreciation you have for somebody's view, you should always be able to find something that you disagree with them about. And so take your, list out your top 5, 10 heroes, whatever, people whose like thinking and writing and style really influence what you think is, good, or what you aspire, or sort of what you would agree with or align with. But try just for your own, kind of for your own sense of self and like, rigor in your thought.
Yeah.
Find a point that you disagree with your heroes. And I'm not sure how to say it where it's not negative, because it's meant to be a positive. It's meant to be more like an empowering thought for the individual instead of like a negative, it's not meant to take people down. It's meant to help build people up.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's almost like what you were saying about the PayPal mafia before, right? Like I feel like you better learn from someone and about someone if you don't just look at their lives through like the edited kind of rose-colored lens. In this case, I mean like things that you might agree with someone about. So it's like to really like get the most learning out of your heroes, or to like really understand them the best you should. It's like their parents know all sorts of sides of them and like really get them, right? Not saying that like you need to understand them as well as their family or anything, but it just adds a lot of context to other parts of their lives as well, and other decisions they might be making, and like what are their priors and what are their values.
Yeah. I like that. I forget exactly what you said, but you said in order to...
I also forget. We can watch that.
All right.
But like in order to really understand like
Yeah,
really understand your heroes, right? Like
yeah. In order to really
understand.
understand, I like that. That's a better way to start it. I'm going to type it into chat.
Nice. Lunch break is not only reading Twitter but also writing Twitter now.
Right. Yeah. That's the framing I want, because I want it to be still positive and
Yeah.
appreciating, but I want to suggest that people should find. I mean, you talk a lot about, maybe even broader than I was describing. You talk about like the context where they made these decisions in their family life, and sort of what they've been through and what sort of challenges or advantages they experience. I think those are all also worthwhile you know considering. I I think something that I had something about, like, find at least one point you disagree with the person on, is, but I want to say it in a nice way. I don't want to say it in like an antagonistic way. I want to say it in a way
Mhm.
that's like, that is actually wasn't. I feel like I read, was there a Paul Graham essay where he was talking about, I think he was talking about something like this in the politics sphere, where he was sort of saying, if you fully align with one party or another, you kind of haven't really thought about these
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find it.
Was that something you shared earlier? You shared a Jessica Livingston essay earlier this week. That's not the one you're thinking about, right?
That that's not it. I do recall that essay, but this is a different one. Two kinds of moderate. I think this was it, December 20th. I'm going to share this one, and then I'm going to read it and see if this is. Yeah, this is like, intentional moderates are similar to those on the far left and the far right, and their opinions are, in a sense, not their own. The defining quality of an ideologue, whether on the left or the right, is to acquire one's opinions in bulk. You don't get to
Right.
pick and choose. Your opinions about taxation can be predicted from your opinions about same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
So that is like,
But what was the initial seed idea that you were thinking about with this?
well, yeah, I guess the goal is to. I mean, I find, I find there's people that I, would, I agree with a lot of what they say. I might not like how they say it, or I might, you know, or I might have some like reframings or different color on how I would express kind of the ideas. But I feel like, personally, when I see myself agreeing too much, I want to hold myself in check, and I want to say, well, okay, like, are you just bought into like an ideology, or like, why do you actually fully aligned with everything this person says?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's like a healthy way for thinking.
Yeah.
I feel like it's. So I guess the reason I was thinking of the tweet was really for myself, to try to catch myself when I may be agreeing with somebody too much, to at least find like some points of
Yeah.
distinction. It's really to keep from runaway kind of
Yeah.
agreement.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic overall, kind of like when and to what extent is it appropriate to rely on the judgments of experts, or in this case, you're calling
Right.
them heroes, like as a proxy for your own? Because we
Right.
can't all be informed about all the things that we want to care about or care about.
Yep.
And in many of those cases, it seems perfectly reasonable to sort of pick the expert whose views you'll kind of accept. Like, I can't explain vaccine science to
Yep.
you, but I will just say that those views are my views. So, but then when it comes to less almost like black and white, like scientific study versus not
Yeah.
kind of issues, that's trickier, right?
Right. Yeah. I like that. I like that. So,
Maybe the point is that, like, it's not, you shouldn't be using no single person should be like your heuristic for your opinions. like some percentage of the time, like not definitely not 100. I don't know what the appropriate percent is, but
or maybe you should pick. I'm just going to try to rephrase it, but maybe you should pick people within domains and appreciate them within domains, but be cautious if your appreciation for them in one domain is going far outside.
mm-hmm.
Like I'm just because you mentioned vaccines, maybe Fauci, like he seems like a very well educated, reasonable set of opinions on what we're doing with coronavirus. I am not deep enough or opinionated enough. I mean, it's very nuanced what we should do. So I'm not saying he's definitely right, but I think if you were to ask me what should we do about COVID, I would say, you know what does Fauci say? That might be one of my first questions. Not to say we should do what he says, but like, I think that's kind of my trust sphere for information would be like, let's start there as an important signal. But I don't think we should let that, I don't think we should let that,
if you're judging
that appreciation should not, like, if we were to say like, what do you think
military spending allocation or something like completely different. Yeah. But even that I feel like is a bit clearer than figuring out within a somewhat narrowly defined domain, say that we're talking about like investing in early stage startups.
Yeah.
How much do you like cut that down, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like it's not so far apart. There are like sub issues that one would consider within that broader bubble. But if you're thinking about, I'm just going to use like ELAT as my proxy for anything related to investing in seed startups, that also seems like that's a little bit too kind of hero worshipy. But then like what level of granularity should you break that down into? Like, do you use them as a proxy for one piece of it? Like how to identify like someone with a particularly good network, I'm just making this up, like some aspects of a desirable founder, and then you follow other people for others. At some point it just breaks down into like, are any of your thoughts your thoughts? Like you're creating like, lots of different brains into yours, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like what is original thought, or what is synthesis of all of the thoughts and experiences that you've been exposed to.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in the whatever I've been using Twitter for 13, 14 years, whatever, I forget, something in that range. I feel like it has rewired my brain. Like I think it's rewired my ability to articulate ideas in a succinct way, and I think it's rewired the number of sources and how I choose to source information and what information I'm exposed to, and the velocity of information. And so I think my curation of where I spend attention there, I think has like had a pretty I'd say noticeable, like you wouldn't recognize the me from then, and probably a lot of it is due to that kind of curation and shaping. So I think every person is really just this like collection of experiences and thoughts and synthesis of what you've allowed into your brain and which parts you've digested.
So I think, I mean, this is like endlessly interesting, right? So I think like the idea of your tweet is a great starting point. Then I do think if you are to try to apply this to your life practically, there's a like overall like stop sign check. Okay, like I'm just parroting person's views too much. Let me think a little bit more. But like, for example, for yourself personally, when would you prosecute that a little bit further? Like how would you enact that kind of thinking in your, or how have you, if you can think of instances where you've tried?
So this is related but a little bit different, but I can share a story that I think has some of these features. Did you ever meet Joe Greenstein? You know Joe? Joe, he created a company called Flickster, and they also operated Rotten Tomatoes. You may have used Rotten Tomatoes before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We always look there to see, like, is this movie any good? They'll say like 90% fresh. So Joe is a person I spent a lot of time with, probably in the especially in that kind of like, I want to say 09 to 2012 era was like tons of Joe time. And, he's a person where like the more I spend time with him, the more I like shape my thinking. And I almost have like these almost like earworms from him that are like implanted in my mind. And I go through life and I see things and I hear Joe's voice, kind of shaping how I think about the thing.
Yeah.
And he just recently had a birthday and we were taking a socially distanced walk. And I was expressing gratitude for this specific feature that of him and sort of telling him how I'm paying it forward. And that's that, so much time that I spent with him, the thing that he's really good at is always seeing the other side of the coin. And I think before I spent a ton of time with him, I would allow myself to see things sometimes more certain than they are. And after I spent a bunch of time with him, I would always find myself, expressing, trying to articulate, steelman the opposite view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a valuable skill, and it requires a certain amount of like distance from you need like emotional distance from a particular problem to be able to do this well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he is the voice in my head. And so I was telling him like with Renaissance Collective, from time to time, there's somebody who's working through, maybe it's a career issue is often the case. And Jen will say, hey, can you hop on the phone with so-and-so? They wanted to talk about something. And, 50% or more of the time, while somebody's asking me something, I'm saying something back, I'm listening to Joe speak in my mind.
Yeah.
I hear his voice telling me, I also see this other side of the coin. And so, I would call Joe more like a friend than a hero. But I think I don't tell that story to say that everything that I fully align with Joe and everything, because I wouldn't. I'm surprised how much actually we discovered we did in that walk, because it's been a while since we caught up. But I tell the story because it's like it's a time that like a person's voice, is kind of lodged in my head in a very, a very particular way that I can notice.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that I like to cultivate because of because of what I've learned from Joe. I think that's where I see it. Like that's an example of where I see the kind of thing is don't let runaway ideology, don't get into like the black or white side of things, and don't get too ideologically aligned. Like, I think if you can really, for me, it's hear Joe's voice to really steelman the opposite side of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think is like a checkpoint that's similar to what we were discussing around like kind of, find the disagreements.
Yeah.
It's one that comes up organically, but not in quite the same context, but
totally.
relevant.
It's almost like pushing yourself to live in the gray zone, or like find areas of gray instead of just floating there by default, because you're kind of like, both sides of the coin. But like actively finding points of disagreement or pushback between different opinions, and also being comfortable at the end of the day being like, well, I'm not sure. Let me learn more. These are the questions I want to ask, and these are the people that would have good input.
Right. Do you know the, I think it's called like the 5 Whys framework. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It's kind of like I don't know if it's like military in origin, or it's also kind of product-y. It's kind of, I don't know. Actually, I'm looking it up now. Okay, so 5 Whys is actually a Wikipedia article, so I'll share it here.
Okay.
It's basically, an iterative, interrogative technique used to explore the cause and effect relationships underlying a particular problem. The primary goal of the technique is to determine the root cause of a defect. And so by just like repeating the question why, you have to keep uncovering a more fundamental truth about,
Yeah.
about a situation.
Yeah.
And, it gets you a little bit, it helps you kind of zoom out or sort of articulate
Yeah.
underpinnings or, like, why are we hosting Lunchbreak? I don't know, it's fun. I read Twitter. But you could kind of, you could get into philosophy within a few whys.
Yeah. Cool. That would be interesting to do this for a bunch of different issues and then see if there's a pattern in the final why. And maybe that's one of your strong overall motivators or values or something.
Right. Like kind of your belief system. This is I mentioned the other one. I'm gonna actually do it now. I think I mentioned the other day about clicking the first link on Wikipedia. We talk about that.
Do you mean like random article or what? What's over some?
I won't articulate it right. I should look it up. But it's something about how basically like if you just show up on a random Wikipedia article and keep clicking the first link, you end up on like philosophy.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this yesterday.
Something. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna clicking on the first link in the main text of a Wikipedia article and then repeating the process for subsequent articles usually leads to the philosophy article. That's directly from Wikipedia. There it is. Oh, and there's following the chain consists of clicking on the first non-parenthesized, non-italicized link. Ignoring external links to the current page or red links. There's a few. There's a few.
Wow, I love this.
I feel like
I'm really close. I'm getting really close. I'm on epistemology.
Oh yeah, you're within reach. You're spitting distance.
So cool. It worked.
So it's kind of the 5 whys of Wikipedia, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how. It's almost like the Kevin Bacon game.
Yeah. What's your bacon number? What's your Erdos bacon number?
The what?
Your Erdos bacon number.
What's Erdos?
You're supposed to be. It's like academia x, I don't know what you would call entertainment.
Erdos number. Oh, okay. Erdos number is a collaborative distance in authoring academic papers between that person and Hungarian mathematician Paul Erdos. Oh, I didn't realize it was like a. This is kind of a. So is he kind of the Kevin Bacon of academic papers? Is that?
I don't know why they picked him, but yeah.
The lower the number, the closer a person is to Erdos and Bacon, which reflects a small world phenomenon in academia and entertainment.
Yeah, so right. Famous in the entertainment industry and also in like abstract scientific.
But this is overlap. This is people who are big at both. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Physicist Richard Feynman has an Erdos-Bacon number of 6. He has an Erdos number of 3 and a Bacon number of 3, having appeared in the film Anti-Clock alongside Tony Tang. Wow. It's a science fiction film.
Yeah.
This is like the perfect product for me because I just love to like, if I could wave a magic wand and do whatever I want, it's basically like read the internet all day and talk about it.
Yeah, perfect. We can have like coffee break is reading Wikipedia, lunch break is reading Twitter.
Another idea that Joe turned me on to, which is prevalent here, is how what a treasure Wikipedia is on the internet, and how it's actually the most important website.
Yeah,
because basically any other website could go away and would relatively easily be replaceable. Like if Google were not there, fine, you can use DuckDuckGo or Bing or.
That's true. What else is like this collective repository of human knowledge like created together?
And if it was destroyed, what a loss,
Yeah.
And it's managed by such a small, there's I think such a small handful of people who are actually engaged in the kind of maintenance and upkeep of it.
Yeah.
Do you know much about the communities there, or how? Have you ever contributed to a Wikipedia article?
As a joke.
What's that?
I've been a Wikipedia troll. Well, in college, we used to sometimes find like party themes by clicking on the random article thing until we found one that was like intriguing enough for us. So
you say a party theme?
Yeah.
You mean a party? Oh, like meaning you're going to host a party on Friday night, and you want to theme the party, like instead of just a boring toga party, you want to have like a 4th of July party or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So we sometimes added the Wikipedia pages to be like in its most recent incarnation, Mercer Street in Princeton on Friday night, and they would always be taken down within like a few hours. But
within a few hours.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Wow. I remember seeing a video a while back about, I think it was somebody talking about, kind of early Wikipedia, how impressive it was that like so much content wasn't there, but you could go and just like stub something out, like just effectively name a page, and then how impressive it would just like be filled out, when you come back to it next time.
That's so cool. I love that.
Because we have like, there's so much information on the internet, and Wikipedia is such a like stalwart of knowledge, right? That it's hard to even remember that magical feeling. But I remember somebody expressing, I think it was Javed Karim, who was one of the founders of YouTube, was giving a talk, and I think he was talking about, I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh wow, he was like commencement speaker. This was the thing I'm thinking of. He was just talking in like a class. Maybe it was ACM. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, I'm actually gonna find it now. I've got the.
I'm so curious. Like
I've got the video, but I don't have the spot in the video, so I'll share. This is the video, but I'm gonna pop ahead because I thought he showed. Oh, he talks about where the hell is Matt? You know that video? Oh, this guy, he was kind of one of the early YouTube phenomenon. He it was this guy who did this like super nerdy, awkward dance in all these different settings all over the world, and he kind of built a little bit of celebrity around. How do I find? Okay, now I'm into like deep YouTube everything. And then he has people in all these different settings join him to dance with him. This kind of super nerdy, silly looking, awkward dance. Where the hell is Matt? 2005? Is this the original? I think this may be the original. Yeah. Okay. If you haven't seen it, you should bookmark this one.
I will.
It's actually kind of inspiring about how, kind of, I think at the time, YouTube was a new phenomenon and the world did not feel as connected as it does today. And so this was like a guy who was going out, traveling all around the world, capturing these video clips of him doing this like super silly dance. And then all these people from the local area piling in and dancing with him in the same silly way.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because like the video quality is pretty bad, which is almost like part of the charm. You kind of remember this bygone era of the internet.
This is so cute. Oh my god. And he always has like the same little dance. Wow.
Okay, I haven't rewatched this yet, but
Wait, what's the job with Kareem one?
So that was the overall talk, and then I actually found the moment where he starts talking about the Wikipedia. But that was the talk that I was recalling, where I think he talked about how impressed he was that you could have like this,
someone
stub out,
and people
dive
in.
You know what? Actually, in the version I shared, I think is not showing as much of the screen. I thought I saw a version of this video before that this is showing him talking in front of a screen.
Yeah.
And you can't really see what's on screen, but I thought there was a version of this where actually you can see like his face with the full screen. So I don't know if this is going to be still, I don't know if this is as good a way to, see the moment as the original one that I recall seeing, but
yeah.
Oh, the original video. Oh, he linked to the original in the description. Why did he? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Never mind that one I just sent, because the one that I mentioned is actually hot or not. This is actually a great talk. This is worth watching. Like the whole thing is really good. Here, I'm going to share. Okay, this is the actual one. The Javed Kareem video worth watching. Okay, I'm going to actually delete the other one. Can I delete? I should be able to. I thought.
I don't think you can delete the... Oh, maybe you can, actually.
I can edit it to nothing, but I can't delete it. And if I edit it to nothing, then the submit is gone.
Oh.
So that's what I can do.
Yep. You can replace it with one character.
Okay, that seems broken. I mean, we should be able to delete, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least the way that like band delete works.
Yeah. So the later one that I shared is actually better. I shared actually the specific moment. Oh no, it didn't share the moment. Ah, right. Okay, sorry. The one the whole thing is worth watching and is fun and interesting, kind of early internet history. But the specific Wikipedia one that I was talking about, I thought I had shared the moment. It's actually at 1406 is he's finishing the hot or not description and moving into the Wikipedia one.
Oh, cool.
So, okay, sorry. What's that?
Oh, I found it, yeah. How did you come across this?
Geez, I don't know. Where did I first see this? I don't know. I feel like it was probably shared around early YouTube. Or, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was probably published, like a decade ago. Hmm.
I like the concept though. I wonder what other places on the internet are places where like someone can set structure and then people can just like go fill it in. I think that's quite
Right.
powerful because if it's all just like very distributed or scattered collaboration, then often nothing happens because it's almost like too much of an open
Hmm.
problem space. But then if people are like, all right, like team, these are the areas that
Right.
we want to look into, then people really do spring into action. I'm
Right.
pretty cool.
I think there's a lot of this actually that happens on Google Docs today, but just doesn't happen in public.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Google Docs is like
Yeah, no
effectively,
more public like public writing or public building, maybe GitHub, maybe like open source
mhm.
code development.
Yeah. I'd like to see. I know this was like a popular idea a while back, and I don't think it's been as recently explored. But there's a little bit of like an idea of GitHub kind of Git workflows for everything. So like
Yeah.
any kind of Git and GitHub are built for software code, but you could imagine it being used for by authors and for authors to do some sort of like collaborative editing. And I think
Mhm.
the way it's actually built, it's really awkward to do that, and the tools are really built for like the code use case. So it's not really built.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of force the workflows in, but nobody would really try to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very niche. There was a company actually called Hardaway. I think it was called Hardaway Books. Hard. No, I probably screwed that up. It's not Hardaway. Is it Hardbound Books? Was that?
Hardbound? That was Nathan's thing.
Oh, that was Nathan. It's in that same era,
Yeah.
but it is. They were trying to do like collaborative Git style book publishing. Okay, I'm going to search for that. Collaborative Git style book publishing. Collaborative writing on GitHub. Somebody introduced me to this guy when we were doing a lot of our kind of book focused highlighting stuff, because he's like super into like the future of books and how books
Mhm.
are going to evolve. And they were building. I think they found that. Oh man, I got to find the name of this thing because I want to see what they're up to. It's a super interesting. Can't remember a detail. There must be some detail that'll. I think they did. Okay, I'm gonna find it. It was kind of it wasn't hardbound. That was Nathan, but it had some like flavor of. It was like a person's name, like Holloway Guides. Holloway Guides.
Oh,
Have you seen this?
I've seen this. I don't know why.
Books crafted for the web. Right. That's what I was thinking about.
I feel like hmm.
So the way they started was using GitHub. I think they noticed some phenomenon that they had like found somebody who was creating, writing a book on GitHub, and people were kind of doing pull requests to improve the book or make changes.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the kind of igniting moment for this. And from what I think what he was saying was that kind of works, but is not easy enough for, it works in like some very narrow niche where people are already kind of familiar with Git workflows. So maybe some of these, maybe like, I don't know, I'm looking at the things like there's, better venture capital, maybe some of those focus things.
Yeah.
Security for everyone, maybe it was something like that. Where you had people who were engaging in that activity, but I don't think as a platform, Git is really built for that. And so I think they were going to be like this publisher on top of Git. And I think what's evolved, it looks like it still has some of the same ethos, but it kind of happens maybe a little bit more like a web-based.
Yeah.
Like a web-based publisher.
Yeah, here are two other ones that people have mentioned.
OpenStax and LeanPub. Are these also kind of web-based readers and publishers?
OpenStax seems like open source textbooks.
Oh. Wow. Then LeanPub is LeanPub looks like it's a lot of technical books. So is it kind of like this? But these are like more traditionally published, or is this a separate publishing platform?
I'm not sure. It's the person who mentioned it said publishing platform focused on workflow for writing / selling in progress books. Okay, so maybe it's more like follow along with something before it's all buttoned up and finished.
Right. Yeah, I think, do you know that guy, Andy Matushak?
Yeah.
He does tons of great writing on the concept of like books and
yeah, I feel like that's where I've heard of him as well. It's a cool website.
Yeah, I like Andy's stuff. Every time I go to his website, I see like tons. I mean, I find it kind of like inspires me to think more broadly about what a book is.
Yeah.
Like why books don't work is kind of one of his on design media to reflect how people think and learn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think some of the stuff he talks about has a bit of like a Rome vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the idea of like collecting ideas and interlinking ideas in more flexible ways, whereas books are, more like static forms of publishing, kind of completed, not very internety. Actually, it kind of reminds me also of some of Von Tan's ideas.
Totally.
That, we should actually, we've been meaning to.
Yeah, we should.
We should have him by for a lunch break.
He's great on this. He had some interesting like thoughts and posts on this as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had earlier today, I was tweeting I saw this thing. Amjad Masad, who is the creator of Replit, announced we are moving our HQ from the US to the internet. India and UK regions are up, making the experience much faster for many users. More to come. And he had a blog post called Going Global,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll share that here. Let's see. That one. So he was talking about how, I think they're moving from the US to the internet. And then Julian Weiser, who is one of the creators of On Deck, said, "Welcome to the internet. We at On Deck like it here quite a bit. Office warming party soon." And I thought that was actually pretty fun and funny, and it reminded me kind of some we've been playing around with the Pluto tool that
Yeah,
obviously a lot built.
I saw that. We should totally have a joint office warming.
Yeah, so I think we could do like a office warming for the internet, and maybe we invite Amjad and the Replit crew and Julian and the On
Yeah,
Deck crew, and we could
yeah,
host
yeah.
it. And then I saw how I think I saw how Linda was going about doing it for her Ethereum group, and I think we could just create a Google form and collect up some interest and figure out who wants to go and pick a date and
Totally.
go for it. So I think we should.
This would be like a fun future of remote work, right?
Yeah.
Plausibly, a lot of employees across this like nexus of companies do live in
Right.
the same places, even though they don't work at the same place. But kind of letting
Right.
people find community and like-minded peers wherever they might be.
Yep. I also think one of the things I've found that really works about Pluto is if there's at least like some curation process where somebody
Yeah,
decides who is going to be there, as long as you trust that person to have good curation taste,
it's
then the
gonna,
whole experience is good. You bump into all kinds of people, some you may know, some you don't know, but are interesting to meet. You have some context. Oh, how do you know such and such host? It has all
yeah,
the, tickles all the same, little kind of neurons as like being at a real dinner party or something, or kind of like an in-person,
yeah,
kind of a happy hour hangout.
yeah, totally.
So we should, yeah, let's plan. We can put that together. We'll put together a form. I'll DM them and see if we can get them involved, because that'll be fun. They're
Yeah,
good
that'll
groups
be
of
so
people.
fun. Here, I'll post a little highlight of this so that if other people have other remote orgs they want to jump in
Oh
on,
yeah.
that could be
We
fun.
should we get a form put together?
Yeah, we can make,
Should we do that before we post something out about it?
or like, did they respond or see that? We can see what they think as well.
Oh, I haven't.
I'm gonna snip this.
So I mean, we should just come up with some sort of you know whatever questions. We probably should want to ask a few questions to understand the context somebody is coming from. Like if a few different orgs wanted to gather people, maybe we have people select which org they're from, and then let the host of those orgs review and approve, just to try to make sure we get the curation down right.
Yeah,
Or maybe there's people who want to participate who aren't from those orgs, but we can kind of have some context to share with people as we're introducing them. So
yeah,
maybe we should design our form, and then we can loop everybody else in to get them involved. But yeah, whenever
yeah,
I've done a few times, uh, been to these Pluto sessions, and they've always been like
yeah,
super fun.
yeah, totally.
Okay, so should we
Yeah.
wrap our lunch
Okay,
break?
yeah. Let's brainstorm
I've
more
been
about this last idea.
nibbling on my crackers, but I need to probably find
Yeah,
something
go
more
have an
substantial.
actual lunch. Sounds good.
Okay, good
Very
hang.
cool.